Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary, where I do the research to try to teach you a little something about what you are drinking. Now today we're going to be talking about a small batch Kentucky straight bourbon called Booker's. This 129 proof bottle has suddenly found itself to be a point of controversy in the whiskey community. I'll tell you why in just a minute. The distillery in question is Jim Beam. Now this time I'm not quite ready to talk about Jim Beam, it's a little too much to bite off. So instead I'm going to talk about the man who came up with Booker's, whose name was Frederick Booker II. Now, he was Jim Beam's grandson, and he was a master distiller for about 40 years. Now in 1987 he decided to introduce his namesake bourbon called Booker's, and it was Jim Beam's first uncut, straight from the barrel bourbon. Booker's is a small batch whiskey, and what that means is, it's like an American term really, where you take a small group of barrels and you age them between 6 and 9 years and you mix them all together. Now those small amount of barrels end up being your small batch. Now Booker's, all of their batches have followed the standard, and they've all been aged between 6 and 8 years and bottled at 121 to 130 proof so far. Now Jim Beam will tell you that all of the barrels used in these small batches are from the center of the rack where all of these barrels are being aged. Now they'll say that this is like the prime spot for the perfect bourbon, but realistically it just means that that area gets the least flux in both humidity and temperature. Now another cool thing about this whiskey is that it comes in a really neat box, and the box is like really sturdy. Actually, I keep my ping pong balls in it. What I had to do to get that box, however, is a different story. All right, Bookers, you know what this means. 20 to 4. If I win, you got to take it off. All right, here we go. Oh, aced. Hey, you know, don't be a bad sport. Come on, take it off. Booker's names all of their bourbons after either family or friends of Fred No. Now, this one's no different. This is the third batch of 2016 called Toogies Invitation. A Toogie was a family friend who had a standing invitation to come over to Fred's house and sample his personal whiskey collection. Now, several times a year, Booker's will put out several batches, and each one of these batches, has a cool name or whatever, like I've mentioned before. But part of the controversy comes into play where they are now reducing the number of batches that they're putting out from 6 down to 4. But not only are they doing that, they're also increasing the price from $60, which you could usually get a little cheaper, up to $100. So that's a pretty significant raise in price point. Why are they doing this? So there's a couple different opinions. The company's opinion, which, take that for what it's worth, is that they're basically running out of whiskey. Now this is Jim Beam. I'm not going to say too much, but I'm going to guess that they're not running out of whiskey. Now, where you have to get this whiskey in order to qualify as Booker's, maybe there's a little bit of merit there. But what I'm leaning more towards is the public's opinion, which is that this is just a bit more of a money grab. So I took that into account and I decided to do my own research and try to figure out the numbers. So don't mind me looking at my notes. I'm about to throw out a couple numbers here. So let's see, there's roughly 350 barrels per batch and roughly 185 bottles per barrel. So that comes out to 64,750 bottles per batch. Now if we multiply that by 4 and 6, we get 259,000 and 388,500 respectively. So that's 4 or 6 batches. Now if we go a step further and multiply by how much they're charging, $60 at 6 batches is $23.3 million. $100 at 4 batches is $25.9 million. So you can see that they're basically making a couple $1 million. Not only that, but by upping the price, they're using less bourbon. They're also reducing their operating costs. So unfortunately, I don't see a downside from a business perspective, but it's not great for the public's perspective. A raise of $40 is kind of a lot. So there is kind of a benefit to this. So Booker's is going to get a bit of notoriety. There's very, very few bourbons that are only $100 or that are up at $100. I can think of like Pappy Van Winkle that usually gets up that high. But more importantly, People that are not familiar with Booker's are going to see this as a gift item. You know, once you hit $100 on anything, it's like a perfect Christmas gift to a whiskey drinker. It's typically not something that you're going to buy yourself. So, you know, people are going to probably buy this out anyway. You know, those 4 batches are going to disappear, which doesn't give a lot of prompting to the company to ever reduce the price again, which is kind of a sad thing. So what do you do if you love Booker's and you don't really want to spend $100? So Knob Creek has a single barrel, which is a pretty solid replacement for this. So if you've never tried it, go give that a shot. All right, so now on to the nosing and the tasting. But first, let me just remind you that if you're enjoying this video, I would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. So, as I mentioned, there's a lot of different batches of this, and doing a nosing and a tasting of any one of them isn't going to be, you know, totally descriptive of everything that you might try, but it should be good enough. I mean, they're all basically made the same way. So, as I mentioned, this is the 3rd batch from 2016, so you may or may not be able to get your hands on this at this point. But either way, let's hop right into the nosing and the tasting. So remember that this is a high alcohol volume, so you do not want to stick your nose into this thing and inhale deeply or it'll suck. So nice, delicate. All right. All right. So pretty easily you pick up a lot of the common ones. You get vanilla and caramel and oak. One thing that you do get in this is you get some smoke, which you don't typically get in a bourbon. So that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and do a bit of tasting. All right, cheers. All right, so one thing to keep in mind is with the alcohol volume, this thing is just way smoother than it has any right to be. The fact that you can even taste anything is incredible. So you get just a world of caramel, actually, at least for me. You can taste vanilla, you can taste oak, you can taste whatever, but like caramel is the leading flavor in here for me. There's also a bit of nuttiness, which is pretty cool, but caramel all the way. So as far as the finish goes, you know, it is high alcohol. It does have a bit of a bite. You're not going to want to chug this thing. In fact, last night I was doing my research for the episode, which is just a fancy way of saying I was drinking. And it took me like an hour to finish about that much. And, you know, given I was drinking it kind of slow, but it just took a while. So anyway, this is just a great whiskey. You know, for the $60 price point, I would recommend you buy this all day long. And in fact, you know, this video is getting released on the 1st of 2017. So go to your liquor store, see if you can still find some batches from 2016 that are still at that $60 price point. If you can, buy them, because they are just, it's totally worth it at 60 bucks. $100, I can't really say it's worth it. I would say go try, you know, something else. The one I recommended earlier today, Knob Creek. Go try that and see if you like it any better, because it is like $45 versus $100, and if you can do that, it's just better. So anyway, that does it for this episode. I just want to take a minute and kind of talk a little bit. So I've been doing this channel for a couple of years at this point, and I'm having a really good time with it. And I don't know if you noticed, but back in 2016, I released a new video on the 1st of every month the entire year, and that was a personal goal I set for myself. I'm actually psyched that I hit it. Definitely got close a couple of times, but one drawback I found was that by releasing on the 1st of every month, you know, there were times where I thought it would have been better to release later in the month. You know, the December episode was a perfect example of that. Doing a Christmas episode on the 1st of December, it's probably not the best idea as far as, you know, really getting some attention and whatnot. So I'm still going to release at least one video every single month, but I may not end up being on the 1st. That being said, I'm going to aim for it unless there's a good reason not to. So aside from that, I do kind of want to do more than 12 videos a month. You know, things are still a little bit busy here, so it's tough to get the time. But in the event that something like Booker's happens, where, you know, it is something being talked about, I would love to be able to do just like a quick video on what's going on, so that, you know, if it's something that you really enjoy, you may not miss out on that price point. So that's kind of what I'm going to go for. Anyway, that's really kind of what I wanted to get to. But one last thing is that if there's any kind of whiskey that you really want to see me review, you know, I have had plenty of you guys do this, but I would really appreciate if you would comment and let me know what you'd like me to do. You may not realize this, but YouTube's search algorithm, whatever, they they have a couple of different parameters, and one of them is how much interaction a video gets. So by commenting, you actually help me promote my videos. So that alone is a good benefit to you commenting, but realistically, like, I love getting the messages on my phone. It kind of like makes my day. You know, I see subscribers, every time somebody subscribes, I get an email. It's awesome. So either way, I love it. Thank you guys all for an awesome 2016. It was very, very motivating for me. And if you're watching this video right now, chances are you were one of those subscribers. So let me just say, you know, this is the first of the new year. Let me say Happy New Year to you, and I look forward to an awesome 2017.